All right, but the other big issue, and I suppose I was going to say more important. I don't know if you can. It's equally, at least equal importance. Over the last 3 years, has been our schooling system in this country. As you know, and I've got children who are at secondary school level. I've just had my my middle daughter just has gone through year 13 last year. I've got one in year 12 and a boy in year 9. And the last 3 years has been disastrous for many teachers, for many pupils within New Zealand's schooling system. And particularly, it would appear, for boys learning in that period of time. But one of the ways in which this has been measured is school attendance, the number of lessons that have been missed by otherwise decent kids who might otherwise have gone to school, with COVID disruptions suggesting being responsible for attendance rates falling from 66% in 2019 to just 50% in term 4 of last year over the last 3 years. And the problem with that is that not only is it education that's not made up, in fact, to do with NCA, the government made a policy decision to award credits for nothing rather than to meet up with that shortfall of NCA credits. But also it means that we potentially have literally hundreds of thousands of school pupils who have not learned what they need to learn to progress to their next level of education, or potentially will leave school without qualifications that will assist them and provide opportunities in life. NZQA have pushed back also on what they perceive to be a lack of literacy and numeracy skills by introducing a series of tests, and those tests have turned out to be quite disastrous in terms of our pupils having the basics grasped at certain age levels, and the effect that that may also have upon pass rates and upon opportunities later on in life for a number of pupils and students currently in the system, or those who have already left. Somebody who's opined on that for a wee while now, and considers that we have a crisis and that there are major consequences down the track from what he calls horrifying school attendance rates currently in our system, is independent economist, principal of Bagrie Economics, and the former chief economist of the ANZ, Cameron Bagrie, and he joins us now. Cameron, good morning to you. Welcome to the show. Oh, sorry, good afternoon, sorry.
Yeah, it's just ticked over. Good afternoon.
Cameron, you used to be the former chief economist at the ANZ. I think you are also, though, you're on your education side, a board member of the Life Education Trust. Do you still hold that position?
Yep.
And so, as a consequence, you will have an interest in education and have one for quite some time. You've been warning about major consequences from school attendance rates as measured by the last quarter of last year. What do you perceive those consequences to be?
Well, I guess I challenge anybody out there to pick a better economic indicator as to where New Zealand is going to be in 20 to 30 years down the track. So that's a long time to think about. But look, the year 2000 sort of seemed to roll around reasonably recently as well. But if you want to signal as to where New Zealand is going to be in 20 years, just look at the educational attainment, educational achievement, attendance levels that we're seeing within the school system today. Because, of course, those school kids of today are the business leaders, the innovators, the scientists, the business innovators of tomorrow. And I guess what we're seeing there at the moment, whether you look at attainment or the indicator you referred to in regard to attendance, with 50% of kids turning up there regularly, 12% of kids are attending school 70% or less. So 12% of kids across 700,000 odd kids. There's 85 odd thousand kids out there across New Zealand that are not even at school 70% of the time. So when I think about where their attainment, achievement, what attendance is going to imply for actually turning up to work, I don't think we're in good shape in regard to where we're going to be within that 20-year sort of vision.
The kind of kids that are not going to school now, though, Cameron, if I can, without being too sensitive about it, are they likely to have been the movers and shakers anyway? The reason I'm asking that is the kids that have gone through COVID, have learned online, who are self-motivated, weren't they always destined to become the movers and shakers, and don't they still currently exist in our education system?
Well, what we've got within New Zealand is that we've got a group of kids at the top that's still doing pretty well, and they're comparable to what we're seeing internationally. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we've got another group of kids, and it's a pretty big chunk, right down the bottom, that are not doing flash. So if you look at the attendance levels across New Zealand, it's about 50%. Half the kids are turning up regularly, and regularly is there 90% of the time. But you got 1/3 of Pacifica kids are there regularly, and about 38% of Maori kids are turning up regularly. Obviously, attendance tends to be lower and lower decile skills. Now, the education system is not just for those at the top. There's this thing, we don't live in a world where we've got what's called equality of opportunity. The world is not fair. We don't all start from the same start line. So we've got to go like hell, I think, in regard to lifting the achievement, attainment, attendance of those kids. But in all honesty, they start a fair bit behind the starting line that other kids are set at.
So, I mean, it's the old maxim, your parents largely determine your success in life. But in this particular case, with Pacifica and Maori children, they've dropped off over the last 3 years in particular, you're saying. But they had poor attendance, or there were proportionately poor attendance beforehand. What is their future other than unskilled?
This is not just about Maori and Pacifica kids. Yes, they're at the worst end of the spectrum, but if you ever look at what we've seen across New Zealand, we've seen a universal decline across all ethnic groups. Okay, some ethnic groups are still a bit higher than others, but the trend here does not date back to just pre-COVID. This is a trend that's been in decline since 2015, 2016. In fact, in 2019, the Ministry of Education, when they saw the figures for that year, noted that we appear to seeing a systemic trend. That was way back in about 2019, 2020. And of course now COVID's sort of come along and everybody's sort of blaming everything on COVID, including declining school attendance. So let's step back here and think about the bigger picture. The bigger picture here is that the trend was down pre-COVID, and COVID has accelerated that trend. And it's not, COVID hasn't picked on certain segments of society. It's across the board. We're seeing school attendance, school achievement is deteriorating across the board.
If you had to identify 2 or 3, and you've had experience, I guess, as a parent, but also as a member of the Life Education Trust and as an economist, if you had to identify 2 or 3 particular causes of that downward decline, what would they be?
So you can't separate out education outcomes or school attendance from what's going on across broader society. So the fact that we've had problems across the housing market where people are getting bounced around, and we've got an increasingly divided society. We've had the gap between the haves and the have-nots. You've got some families, and this has been, inflation has been wretched in regard to the pressure it's putting on families in regard to putting food on kids' tables, etc., etc. You've got the whole issue of parenting. You've now got teachers that are becoming quasi-social workers, and I don't think they're qualified. And that they're qualified to teach, not handle a lot of the stuff that's sort of turning up from day to day. So if you're looking at solutions in regard to what's going to turn the problem around, you don't just look within the sphere of teaching per se in regard to what's going to work. Yes, I think there's some stuff there that we need to take place in regard to teachers, which is getting back to the good old basics, reading, writing, and maths. A little bit like you want to be an All Black. Well, You've got to learn to pass the ball and catch the ball are the basics of the game before you start to move on to anything else. It's the same with schooling in regard to where we're going. We've got to be looking at remunerating our teachers properly, but if you want to get remunerated better, well, you've got to get measured in regard to performance, because one goes hand in hand with the other. We want better quality teachers coming in, because they are the governors of tomorrow's economic and business leaders down the track. Like, I guess the flip side is that if there's one big thing I think we can do to fix it or help, is that we've got to do something in the parenting space. And what that looks like, I don't know. I suspect we probably need some parenting entity, not the Ministry of Parenting, but somewhere where people can reach out and go to learn to be better parents. But we need to take responsibility here all round. It's not just pointing the finger at the teachers in regard to what's going on. We've seen a wholesale breakdown here across all areas, and it's going to take a hell of a lot of work to reconnect it.
I don't think anybody would disagree with you on that. The other thing, though, is that what you're suggesting is very much societal, in the sense, Cameron, of if you do not have an educated, literate population who are skilled, then you will not have a strong, prosperous economy. You've made that link quite clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the research coming out of the OECD determines a very strong positive link between education and economic outcomes, incomes of individuals. There's a very strong, what's called social rate of return to government from investing in kids at a young age, because people become adults and they pay more tax. But of course, there's a very strong return as well individually from investing in your education in the form of higher remuneration. I think that's one thing I was reading the other day. Said, look, each extra year of schooling adds about 9% to your income. So that's a positive link that's worth driving for.
But what you're also describing is a culture, Cameron. I mean, it is a suggestion that our culture somehow is awry in this country, and it has been for a while now. Other countries, as measured by international standards, the Singapores, the South Koreas, are not the Scandinavian countries, are not Finland, are not performing as poorly as New Zealand, are not dropping down, are maintaining higher educational standards, and would appear more prosperous economies as well. I could only think that the difference between all of us and those countries, which are also different from each other, is that there would be different cultures operating in those countries, wouldn't there, at a societal level?
Yeah, the different cultures, maybe they have not had the same sort of breakdown in regard to community, society-based cohesion. But let's look at something just a little bit different, right? You look at the starting salary for a teacher now in New Zealand. The starting salary for a teacher in New Zealand now, out of teachers' college, you're going to be making a little bit above the minimum wage. Now, what we've seen over time is that the relative pay of teachers versus medium wage, etc., or compared to other areas or where you can work, has been slowly eroding over time. And over a 20 to 30 year period, suddenly end up in a situation like we've got today, where teachers, once they come out on the first day on the job, and hey presto, you're earning a couple of bucks above the minimum wage. Now, does that seem fair? Does that seem just? Is that the right economic signal to encourage someone today to go study at teachers' school with a view to looking after New Zealand's economic future? Of course it's not.
So Ian Taylor and Wendy Pye have made the same comment today, as you're probably aware, about boosting teacher salary. But you've done what I would have done too, which is you've linked that to there must be also an improvement or at least a measurement of teacher performance, and that's been resisted for a long, long time by teacher unions. The two are correlative, yeah? Then one must go with the other. If you're going to boost teacher salaries, you've got to have a way of measuring quality.
Absolutely. It's about delivering results. There's no free lunch here.
But there is, isn't there, if the teacher unions get their way? I mean, you're going to have to face them down at some stage, right?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see the mood of the nation over the next 4 to up to 5 months ahead of the election. Now, my pick is that the mood of the nation is now starting to demand a whole lot of change, and the fingers being pointed at certain areas. I think most people are supportive that teachers need to get paid, and they need to get paid a fair whack more. But I think if you expect to sort of take the pay, well, expect to be accountable for delivering results on the other side. You don't get one without the other.
And finally, the other point that you made, and I thought was a very good point, is the concept of productivity and innovation. You're saying that the countries that succeed are countries that are regularly innovating, but also this concept of productivity, you're getting something for what you put in. Are we spending too much time on emphasising particularly tertiary education over vocation in this country? Over the last 20 years, we seem to have encouraged people to get sufficient grades to head off to a tertiary course. Has that been the wrong course that we've been steering down?
Yeah, my personal view is that far too many kids get steered into a university education, whereas they should be steered in possibly other directions. In all honesty, a lot of stuff now that you learn at university, you can just sort of look up and Dr. Gill is going to teach it to you. And I wonder, to be honest, about whether a lot of those people, and no disrespect to university lecturers, but the stuff that they're teaching sort of fit the purpose for the modern business world. And I think some of those sort of questions need to be asked. Is the whole university system across New Zealand fit for purpose for what employers want? And I think some question marks need asked in regard to that. And I guess you look at the flip side is that you're not going to university, maybe you're going to politics and other sort of vocational based training. You have a look at the debacle that's happened with the consolidation of the politics into Hamilton.
Well, but having said that, I don't know if it was like when you were at university, but when I went to university, I was pretty much going there for a meal ticket. A qualification was going to provide me, as you say, with not only a superior opportunities in terms of employment, but also better remuneration as well. I can't imagine that's changed too much in 2023, has it?
No, I don't think so. But what does university education give you? In some areas, it provides you a unique set of skills, dentistry, doctor, law. But for a lot of stuff, it just shows that you've got the credentials to actually learn. You can soak up information, you can apply cognitive thought processes. That's actually what you come out with effectively a certificate in regard to, I can pick up things, I can put my brain to work. And that's what going to tertiary education is all about for some people, But and a lot of entrepreneurial stuff that really takes place, a lot of the real creative stuff, it's almost like I'd like to encourage kids to take a bit more risk than they're young. Go out on your own, try something. Feel your way a little bit more. You don't feel the need. You get a strong basis in education. And it's that strong basis is the primary school and secondary school, etc., etc. But I think we push far too many kids into the tertiary education system, and we're overweight that and we're underweight other vocational areas.
Totally agree with you. Thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon, Cameron. Really appreciate your time. I think your clarion call to action is something that will be echoed. It'll be interesting to see if the parties do that in the lead up to the general election. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Michael, and tell all your listeners to get out there, and we need a call to arms across the parents to tell them to needle the hell out of the politicians. Good on you.
Yep, will do. Thank you very much. That's Cameron Bagrie. He's the Chief Executive, obviously Chief Economist of his own firm, Bagrie Economics. He was a former Chief Economist at the ANZ, and he is still currently a board member of the Life Education Trust as well.